Okay, hello there. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another live stream with me, Lara Ryan from Complete Test Success. So today we're doing an essay correction for Academic IELTS Writing Task 1. On Friday or Saturday last week, I posted a question online in my Facebook page and my YouTube channel, and I asked you guys to write an essay in response, share that essay in the comments, and now I'm going to choose one of those people at random. So you can see the people who submitted their writing here, and I'll just click on this little app to choose the winner. Okay, so we have Moments with Humoyen. Okay, lovely. So I just need a moment to find that essay and get it on a document so that we can correct it. Okay, so I'm just after looking at this, it's an incomplete essay, but to be fair, Humoyen did win, so let's go with that. It's very short though. So what I'm looking at here is 94 words. That's that's definitely going to get a low score. Anyway, give me a moment. Let me just add it to the document. Okay, and now I can just share my screen with you guys, and we'll go through it. So today, what I'll be doing is I'll be looking at the essay, and this is, there's a lot of data here, so that's it's a tricky enough question in terms of the amount of data, but we also have predictions for the future for 2040. So you can't just go straight from 2000 to 2040, because from 2000 to 2020, that's some real data that's been collected. And then the data for 2040 is a prediction. So we need to discuss that. We need to discuss that separately. Hi, Darkstar. Welcome to the lesson. Hey, Samuel. Good to see you here. Always a pleasure. Okay, so as you can see, this question is very short. Excuse me, this essay is very short. So absolutely, they'll be looking at low scores for this. A total of 94 words. That's just not going to be enough. Okay, so first of all, they need to paraphrase the question. So the question says, the chart below shows the primary hobbies of the adult residents in a small Tunisian town since 1980 and predictions until 2040. Okay, so the table illustrates information about how many hobbies were recorded in Tunisian in 1980 and predictions for 2040. No. How many hobbies were recorded? No. Information about which was the main hobby. So it's very important that the question statement and your paraphrase has the same meaning. Which were the main hobbies in? Now, Tunisian is an adjective, but we're saying in Tunisia. Okay. But it said in the question, it said the adult residents. Okay, so so let's say the main hobbies among adults in Tunisia in 1980. Well, it's not in 1980, it's since 1980, and predictions for 2040. Okay. All right, so that works. So the problem then with Hanayun's writing, Hanayun has tried to change a lot of the vocab. But what's happened by changing so much vocab, the meaning isn't clear. The thing about the adults, that's gone. The fact that it's the main hobby or their primary hobby or the hobby they like most, that information is gone. So it's just not clear enough. Saying in 1980 is different from since 1980. Since 1980 is from 1980 until now, whereas in 1980 is just in that year. So quite a few mistakes in terms of the paraphrase. So that obviously makes it inaccurate. So that would be problems for that. Darkstar, I really want to get band 9 in writing, which is a daunting task. Can you please show me how to achieve that perfect band? Honestly, for most people, the most difficult part of achieving a band 9 is having the vocab and the grammar necessary to get that score. Having the vocab and grammar necessary. So if your goal is to get a band 9, most likely you're going to have to improve those two areas. Vocab is the area that takes the longest time to improve. So I would really, really recommend that you focus on that part of the test if you're serious about getting that score. Okay, so here's the question. I just have this little app here because it allows me to kind of make annotations on the diagram. It's just a screenshot. Right, so from 2000 to 2020, we're going to have to say which one's increased and which one's decreased. We can't just go straight from 2000 to 2040 because that is two different points. That is two different sets of data. So we have the stuff from the past and then the predictions for the future. So we need to address them separately. So it increased there and then it's expected to increase there. Next one, increased and expected to increase. Stayed the same and is expected to stay the same. That was a decrease and it's expected to decrease further. That was a decrease and it's expected to decrease further. That was a decrease and it's expected to decrease further. That was the same and it's expected to stay the same. That was a decrease and it's expected to decrease further. That was a decrease and it's expected to increase. So this is the only one that kind of went kind of down and up. All the rest of them went up and up, the same, or down and down. So with painting, that's the only one we really need to address separately. Okay, so let's have a look then at this overview. Overall, it is clear that woodwork made up the largest proportion of hobbies, while video games accounted for the lowest share. Okay, so maybe that's true as well. So let me look at that again. Woodwork made up the largest proportion of hobbies. So woodwork is here. 200, yeah, so it was highest there. 180, well, no, because this one and this one are both 180. So you can't say that. Hang on, let me do this in a different color. It'll be easier to follow it. Okay, so the highest in 2000 was woodwork. That's true. The highest in 2020 is woodwork and board games. So those are equal. And then in 2040, we have TV and movies has the highest figure. Okay, so when we look at this overview here, woodwork made up the largest proportion of hobbies. You have to say when. When are you talking about? And yes, that's true for the year 2000. It was the highest in 2000, but it was equal to board games in 2020, and it was not, or it's not expected to be the highest in 2040. So that there is only true for the year 2000. While video games accounted for the lowest share. Okay, so let's have a look at the lowest. So video games in 2000, the lowest is, oh, excuse me, video games. Yep, that's true. And then in 2020, video games again. And then in 2040, it's expected to be video games again. So at least that's true. But what we need is we need that full information. So make it clear. While video games accounted for the lowest share in each year and are expected to be the lowest in 2040. So if you want to say it's the lowest, you have to say when. So there, now that's an accurate description of video games being the lowest in each year and expected to be the lowest in 2040. Whereas when you talked about woodwork, that was true for the year 2000, but it wasn't true for the other years. And you didn't say that you're talking about 2000, so that's unclear. Okay. Moreover, it is also worth mentioning that the difference between the biggest and smallest figures is significant. That's quite a vague description, so the reader isn't really going to be able to imagine you're just saying there's a big difference. How big is big? No, so that's a bit vague. I wouldn't worry about that. Now, for me, if I was answering this question, I would more likely go from here to here. And I would say all of the categories in between 2000 and 2020, all of the categories decreased except for studying and playing music, which remained the same, and TVs and movies and working out, which increased. By 2040, the same patterns are expected for every category except painting, which is expected to increase slightly. So I would be more likely to say something like that if I was writing the overview of that particular question there. Okay, let's see if we have any more questions here. Darkstar, can you write a task one and can you write a task one that has two distinct paragraphs or pictures and make it so that it can reach around band 8 or 9? Then I believe it will be a good example to follow. Yeah, so there's loads of sample essays on my website. Go to my website, so it's completetestsuccess.com. And there are tabs across the top. Click on task 2, you'll see sample essays under that menu. Click on task 1, you'll see sample essays under that menu. Yeah, so there are loads. I'm not sure how many, but 20 or more anyway, I think. I've seen a lot of model answers, but it doesn't feel right. So I would want to see the process of writing. Yeah, so take a look at the website, and for all of those, there are videos of me going through either working with doing live streams, working through the questions and helping students find their mistakes, or working through the questions and writing the essay for them. So yeah, take a look at that page on my website. You'll see all that stuff there. Okay, so let's go back to this essay. Woodwork stood out as the dominant trend. No, a trend is like when something increases, that's a trend, or if it decreased over time, that's a trend, or it might have fluctuated, that's the trend. So that's the wrong word. Maybe just stood out as the dominant hobby. The dominant hobby in 2000, starting at 20. Well, it's just at 20. A figure that then decreased slightly to 180. So let me see here. So woodwork in 2000 was 20. Woodwork in 2000 was 200. So you've written that figure incorrectly. A figure that then decreased slightly to 180 after 20 years. So 180. Okay, so that one is correct. So basically you got that one wrong. You got that one right. Now, the reason that I have this question on the screen like this, and the reason that I'm ticking off the different pieces of data, is that I'll never remember which ones you've already mentioned and which ones you have and which ones you haven't. So what will happen to me is, as I'm correcting an essay, I will always tick these off, because I can't rely on my memory to see if it's all been done or not. So I tick them off as I go along. But I would also recommend all my students to have something similar. Now, of course, if you're doing the IELTS test, you're more likely doing a computer-based test. So you can't tick off the bits of data as you write about them. If you're doing the paper-based test, you can do this. You can make these little notes on the question. You can tick them off just to make sure that you've done them all. But if you're doing the paper-based test, if you're doing the computer-based test, I'd recommend you do something like this. So like on your piece of paper, write down like TV, working out, playing music, baking, video games, woodwork, studying, board games, and painting. And then as you write about them, put in little ticks. So you woodwork, okay, I did woodwork for the first one, and now I'm after doing woodwork for the second one. Great. So I would recommend you also have a little bit of note paper where you're ticking off the pieces of data as you write about them, because what will very likely happen is you'll tick them off as you're going along, and then you go, oh look, I still didn't talk about this one, and then you can you can easily add it to your essay. Whereas if you're trying to do it all from memory, there's so much to think about. You'll probably forget about one category, or you just won't notice that something is missing. So I'd really recommend making little notes like that. And that's why I'm making these notes, is I can't rely on myself to remember that stuff. And I wouldn't recommend that anybody try to remember. Okay, and it is expected to decrease by 40 in 2040. Okay, so let's have a look at that. Decrease by 40. So no, 180 down to 160 would be 140. So you've said 180 and it decreased by 40. So 180 decreased by 40 would be 140. So you've told the reader that it was 140. So you've made a lot of mistakes here. You said that woodwork started at 20, but it was 200. You said it decreased to 180. That's fine. And then it decreased further by 40, which is wrong. So out of those 3 pieces of data, 2 of them are wrong. And that's obviously you didn't finish this essay. So, out of all the categories, you've discussed woodwork. Haven't mentioned any of the other categories. So that's obviously very problematic. You've only mentioned 3 pieces of data, and out of those 3 pieces, only 1 is correct. So obviously that's problematic. In your overview, you mentioned some vague stuff. You didn't include the year that you're talking about. So you're probably looking at like a band 3 or so for task achievement. Your vocab and grammar aren't too weak, to be honest with you. It's not like you have major problems with vocab and grammar, but what I would say is just try not to change so many words. Like the trend in the number of hobbies, like you're using vocab that you don't really understand. You're more likely to make mistakes and become unclear when you do this. The overview, for any overview, I would recommend, somewhere around 30 words would be okay. You've written about 40 for this one. So, the overview is longer than it needs to be. The paraphrase has a different meaning, or at least doesn't have the same meaning, but that's the same thing. You haven't included appropriate information in the overview. You haven't included all the categories. You haven't included all of the you haven't included accurate data. So really a lot of things to work on there, to be honest. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for that essay. Let's see, do we have any more questions here? Oh, I forgot to take it on that. Dark Star, okay, I'll be right there. Okay. Hi, Ahmed. Hi, Lara. When it comes to dynamic charts or tables, would it be a good approach to describe the increasing and decreasing trends along with the highest and lowest points? And as far as static charts, we can only describe highest and lowest. Yeah, so if it's a dynamic chart, start by mentioning the increases and decreases. And if your overview is already about 30 words long, that's enough. You don't need to do anything extra. If your overview is still quite short, then talking about the highest and lowest as well is a good idea. With the static, start off with the highest. If that's enough, fine. If it's not enough, include the lowest. Generally, that will be enough. And if it's not, find something else to talk about. Thank you, sir, for your feedback. Next time I try to write error-free task 1 report. Good. So is that your essay that we were looking at there, Alex? Is that your one? Ahmad, but in this particular table, we have a lot of categories and data. Wouldn't it be a good idea to group similar information? Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So before we finish up, let me just give you an idea of like the overview I would write for this. And I'll just talk you through like my own little thought process when it comes to overview. So I've already made those notes. I wouldn't attempt to write an overview without making little notes for myself first. Okay. Now, so what we said was all of them decreased except TVs, movies. So between 2000 and 2020, TVs and movies and working out. Okay. So let's add that. So overall, between 2000 and 2020, all of the categories decreased, except for TV and movies, which increased. Oh, sorry, TVs and movies, and what was the other one? And working out. TVs and movies and working out, which increased. INCREASE, which increased. And now we had music, playing music, remained the same, and studying remained the same. Okay. And I'm after forgetting those already. Playing music and studying. Playing music and studying, which decreased. No, which remained the same. Okay. By 2040, the same trends are expected for every category except, well, let's say besides, because I already said except. Every category besides now. So that was just going through these again. So we had up and up, up and up, same and same, down and down, down and down, down and down, same and same, same and same, down and down, and then painting. Besides painting, which is predicted to have a slight increase. That's a very long overview. But to be honest, what else can I do? You know, sometimes there will be questions where you just don't have a choice. 49 words. I mean, under normal circumstances, I would say, you know, a 50-word overview is far longer than it needs to be. But what you have to say what happened. You can't go straight from 2000 to 2040. So this particular question is, you know, there's a lot going on here, and that's a lot more than we would expect in an average question. So that would be the way I would write an overview. Are you finishing already? I am. That essay was very short. Maybe I should have some kind of a stipulation where I only accept essays that are finished. I didn't even look at the essays before starting the live stream. I just took the names of the students, added them to that app, and then chose at random. So I had no idea that essay wasn't finished. But I mean, that essay, to be honest, in terms of coherence and cohesion, vocab and grammar, they're doing okay. I would say like band 6 for each of those, whereas the task achievement score would be a band 3. So that essay we looked at for Hunoyun would be task achievement 3 and then 6 for the others. So I'm after doing something wrong there. So 3 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 divided by 4 still be a band 5. I mean, pretty good for a half-written essay, to be fair. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for today. Yeah, let's leave it there. I'll be back next week with another live stream. I'll be focusing on another part of the test. If anybody wants one-on-one support, you'll find the link for my courses in the video description. And yeah, that's it for today. Take care of yourselves. Bye, everybody.